Welcome to Your Personal Power Pod, a podcast about aligning yourself with the life you want. And here are your hosts, Sandy Abel and Shannon Young.
Shannon, another beautiful day in the neighborhood. How are you today?
I'm swell, Sandy. How about yourself?
You are swell, you know. That's a good word. I like that. I am good too. Thank you.
I have to tell you a side story before we get started talking about our topic today, just because of the word swell. It's a funny word. It reminds me of the word swole.
Swole?
Swole, as in like you're swollen.
Oh,
Yeah, but you're all swole up. Like that's how people talk about people who are ripped, who are muscle builders. You know, people who lift weights and pump iron, they are swole. That's the phrase.
Is that a real word?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a real word. It's a word used today that somebody came up with that may or may not be accurate. My husband was emceeing a motorcycle event a couple of years ago, and one of the guys who won the prize for one of the categories went up to retrieve his prize, and this was a gentleman who had lifted a lot of weights in his life.
Yes.
And my husband over the microphone said to this gentleman, "You okay, man? You look a little swole, like maybe you got stung by a whole lot of bees."
Oh, geez. Oh, no.
To which I thought, for sure, he knew that man. They did not know each other. It is a good thing that my husband is 6'6", and this guy may have been that wide, but was not that tall. But I thought it was funny, and that's what word reminded me of.
Oh, my goodness. So it was swell. And he was
It was all swell.
And we are so off topic here, but this is funny.
He was providing a little bit of criticism there.
It's feedback. It was feedback.
Constructive feedback.
Yes, see, and there is a difference, and we're going to talk about that today.
Yes, we're talking about criticism.
Exactly. And when you criticize, you're expressing a negative opinion or evaluation of a person, a decision, a point of view, a piece of art, a situation of anything, really. Mm-hmm. And when it's done in a positive manner, criticism, or as we like to call it, feedback, can be constructive and helpful. But when it's done in a hurtful way, it can be negative and controlling and cruel.
Yeah. Especially today, we see a lot of this. I would argue that the intent behind the words distinguishes whether it's criticism or helpful feedback. Do you want the person to learn and make changes? Do you want the person to feel bad?
Exactly. And there are many kinds of criticism. Today, we're going to look at the destructive, negative kind, or the positive feedback, constructive criticism kind.
Okay. Tell us about negative criticism.
Obviously, we all know it. We've all been recipients of it. Some of us may have been the ones who deliver it. I hope not, but some people do. Negative criticism is when you show disapproval or disagreement with something or someone and make a negative comment or personal comment. Really, those are the most painful, designed to control or hurt or degrade someone.
Mm-hmm. I think I've been here, hypercritical, nitpicky about things.
Really, you?
It's one of the things I'm not real proud of. But I also know that people direct critical comments towards others to diminish them.
Right.
Because maybe they aren't feeling so great about themselves and they want the other person to feel bad too, whether they know it or not.
Yeah. And a lot of people are critical and they don't even realize they're critical. They're just saying what comes into their brain and out their mouth and don't even think about it. If you walk into a room and somebody goes, "Oh, well, that's an ugly outfit." I mean, they probably didn't even think before they spoke. They thought it and it just came right out. And there was absolutely no positive point to it. There was no point to it, really. When you're critical, you emphasize the downside of something, and it's meant to diminish the person or whatever it's directed at. And it's often done in public, not always. People can be critical one-on-one. Often, like I just suggested, you walk into a room and there's 12 people there and somebody goes, "Ew, look at that." That is criticism, and it's totally unnecessary, and it's done to humiliate. It's also something you really can't do much about. Somebody directs something like that at you, say you don't like my outfit, so what?
Yeah, you can't really fight it.
Well, and you don't want to make a bigger deal out of it. it's best to just take a deep breath, keep your composure, and emotionally detach. If it's something that's important, you can go up to the person and say, what is it you're saying? Is it there really something that I need to know about this? If it's not, don't give it credibility by arguing or defending.
Yeah. And if there's anything that you can glean from what they're saying, anything valid about it, take that and then release the rest of it.
Exactly. And if it's just mean or controlling for the heck of it, when I hear the word mean, I always think about mean girls in high school.
Yep.
Even elementary school or junior high. They're really mean for the sake of controlling and trying to elevate themselves. Mm-hmm. It comes across as just mean and controlling, and all you can do is just ignore them and walk away.
Yeah, don't give them any power.
Yeah, if you don't make a big deal about it, if you act like you didn't even hear it, you have taken control. That is how you deal with negative, hurtful criticism.
Yeah. And then there's the kind that I am choosing to call constructive feedback.
Yes.
And that's where the thoughts and opinions are delivered in a positive, respectful manner. And they are designed to help you or support you by giving you specific examples or pointing out where you could improve in certain areas. But they're offered in a friendly way with good intentions.
Exactly. And it can increase your perspective and understanding of something. This is something that we ask our listeners for all the time. Mm-hmm. What can we do to make our podcast better? And we're hoping that you're not going to just rip us apart. But if there's something you don't like or something you would like to see that we're not doing, we would love some constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Constructive criticism or feedback can help you figure out new ways, help you brainstorm solutions and figure out next steps.
Helps you grow and evolve.
Exactly. Hopefully it's done in a supportive, positive way where you can actually strengthen your relationship and build trust.
You pointed out when we were talking before we started recording that in a work situation, this can often be your mentor. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's your boss. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not.
Or your coach. I'm a business and life coach. Part of what my job is to point out in a very positive, supportive way how maybe things are not as effective as they could be and can be done in a different way. And then we brainstorm.
But you're not knocking people for doing things the way they're doing them. You're just pointing out that there might be a different way that might work better.
Exactly. And it's done with a positive point of view. Hopefully we can work together to make things even better.
Mm-hmm. So I think there are skills involved in delivering constructive criticism. I learned a long time ago when I was dancing for fun and exercise. And would occasionally have dance partners who weren't at the same level that I was awful at teaching because all I could see was what they were doing wrong and had a really hard time finding the words to help them move forward. So I just didn't say anything at all because I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I didn't know how to phrase things either. It's definitely a skill.
Yeah. Have you figured it out since then?
No, I stopped dancing. How about that?
Too bad. Dancing is wonderful. Oh my goodness. Well, if you give constructive criticism or feedback in a positive way, you're actually building openness and trust. So if you had said to your dance partner, I have a thought, what about if we tried it this way? That sounds like you're collaborating and building trust.
Yeah. That's true, because I think mostly I was focusing on, they're doing their feet this way instead of this way. They need to be doing it this way. And then it becomes a them problem.
Right.
Then there's just no going back from that. Maybe it would work better if we interacted this way.
Yes. And make it a we, or just use I statements. You don't ever say, I think that you, because if you're attacking somebody saying you, unless you follow it with are wonderful, they're going to put up a wall. You say, I feel, and then say a feeling word.
I feel frustrated that you're not getting this right.
I know. I feel frustrated that we keep tripping on each other's feet.
Oh, there you go.
What can we do? It's about the situation, not the person.
That makes sense. And if you can, try and have it in private.
Oh, always.
It's not great to be schooled in public.
Oh, it won't take. We've all been called out for various things in our lives in front of other people, and we instantly put up the barrier, shut down, don't listen. it just creates mistrust and all kinds of negative things. Always, if you're going to give constructive criticism or positive feedback, do it in private. If you're in a meeting and something comes up and you say, well, Joe, after the meeting, can we talk for a minute? That kind of thing. You'd never call somebody out in front of other people.
Yeah, it destroys whatever trust you might build by having a quality conversation with them.
Exactly. And they won't listen because they'll be too hurt and shamed and all those things.
And then point out what somebody's doing well. Like, I love your enthusiasm. I'm so happy you're here. I love that you have passion for whatever this is.
Right.
Maybe it would help if these things were implemented.
Yeah, let's take that passion and put it into this. Wouldn't that be fun? Would that work? Include them in the decision and the discussion. Don't just lay stuff on them.
It can be helpful to ask what the other person is experiencing too, because maybe the ideas that you're presenting aren't so new. Maybe they're thinking them as well. And if you can make their ideas your ideas and vice versa, that much better.
Absolutely. And before you give any kind of feedback, ask yourself why you're doing it. Will it help them improve? Will it help the situation improve? Is there really anything they can do about it? You've mentioned that back when you were on TV, people would comment about your looks.
Yeah.
I know a person who is really short. People are always commenting to her about, can you see over the dashboard? And, just nasty. She can't do anything about that.
Right.
So don't say anything if there's nothing they can do to fix it. Make sure you ask yourself what positives are going to come from this feedback.
And be sure that you're saying whatever you need to say or want to say in a timely manner. It's like training my dogs. If I reward them for something they did 24 hours ago, they're not going to make the connection.
Right, exactly. It has to be immediate, really. Then when you do it, you make sure you pay attention to your tone of voice, your facial expressions, your body language. You have to be relaxed and positive. You have to smile and nod your head and make eye contact. All those nonverbal communication skills you've got to use if you are giving positive feedback.
And then on the other side, how do you accept that feedback?
Yes, there is that.
Because that is really hard for some of us.
Yeah, it's hard to have somebody point out that maybe there's a different way to do what you're doing because you're doing it because you think that's the way to do it. And it's important to remember that if somebody is taking the time to give you positive feedback, they want to support you and help you grow and learn.
This was an issue when it wasn't really constructive criticism, I guess, but driving with my husband, we take turns. And when he's driving and I know where we're going and he doesn't go the way I would have gone, there is very much a part of me that wants to say, why aren't you going this way? It's faster. And I have learned to respond to myself and say, I bet we'll get there anyway.
You are so wise. I have the same issue.
It's hereditary.
I just spend more time during the day driving all over town where he doesn't. He has certain places he goes and that's what he does. So I know the back roads and how to miss all the lights and all that stuff. If we go his way, it'll be 5 minutes difference. It's really not a biggie, but I have the same issue.
That's so funny. So that's our number one step there, is to avoid immediately reacting. I realize we're talking about accepting constructive criticism, but for me, sometimes I have to apply that step when it comes to giving constructive feedback. Avoid immediately reacting.
Well, and decide if it's really important.
Yeah, is it worth it?
Does it really matter? Is it going to make a difference in the long run? If somebody's driving off a cliff, you might point out, hey, turn. But if they're just going a different direction than you would normally go, it really doesn't matter.
Well, then it's not even about constructive criticism. It's about a need for control.
Well, there's that. That's a whole other, maybe we should talk about that someday.
We should.
So when somebody does take the time to give you honest, gentle, constructive feedback, make sure you don't immediately react. When you hear it, it can engage your fight or flight response instantly, like you said. So before you respond, take a deep breath and stay calm and resist the urge to react or argue.
I've noticed a really thoughtful thing that you do before you offer constructive feedback is you ask me if I want it first, which is really nice because even when what's going to follow is gentle and kind and just aimed at making things better for you, there is a tendency to like throw up a barrier
Sure.
and brace yourself. And so if it's just delivered with no notice, it can feel like a gut punch sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's gentle. So it's really nice that you will frequently say, hey, I've noticed. And then you'll stop and you say, do you want to know what I think?
Yeah.
And then I can steel myself for it.
Or you can say, no, thank you, and I will not talk.
Right.
It's your call.
Right. So if it's something that really doesn't affect you and you're just wanting to help the other person, they may or may not want your help.
Right.
So ask them first.
Yeah. Even with my coaching clients, I always say, would you like my thoughts on that? They'll be telling me about a challenge and stuff. And I ask before I share, because if they don't want it, they're not going to hear it. So there's no point.
Why bother?
Yeah. But if you are willing to accept it, you can remind yourself that constructive criticism can help you improve and that it's probably being offered with your best interests at heart.
You hope.
Oh, yeah. If it's constructive criticism, it's positive feedback, like when our listeners tell us what they would like us to do differently. That's done with a positive attitude. It's like, I really like what you guys are doing. What about if you tried this? It's like, oh, great idea. Thank you. That's how you learn, is when somebody takes the time to point out that even though what you're doing might be really wonderful, there is something that you could do to make it even more fabulous.
That's how we wound up doing a recap at the end of each episode. Somebody said, I like listening to you, but it would be really helpful if you wrapped it all up with the main points at the end. And we were like, oh, great idea.
Yes, exactly. That is how you learn and grow. If somebody is kind and thoughtful and gentle enough to deliver constructive criticism, and if they're doing that, then you need to listen to understand and make sure you clarify. Don't get defensive or upset. Just say, so what I'm hearing you say is this, and try to listen with an open mind.
And then be appreciative, because it's not easy to offer constructive feedback. And if somebody's doing it in a way that's gentle and kind and truly wanting to help you, that is an action from the heart. Be appreciative, try not to get defensive, and just thank them.
Right. And remember, it might be uncomfortable for them too. They're putting themselves in an uncomfortable position because they care about you. Try to receive what they're saying in a positive way, as hopefully it's being delivered in a positive way. And then ask questions. You don't need to argue or challenge or fight with them about it. Just say, okay, I hear you saying this. You have some good points. Can you help me figure out how to move ahead with that? And then you brainstorm.
Yeah, make it collaborative on both sides.
Exactly. And that way you will learn and grow, and it will also help strengthen your relationship with that person and build trust.
Why is it so hard to hear constructive criticism?
Well, because we all like to think that we're cool just like we are.
That we've got it handled?
Yeah, it's all under control. Control is big in everybody's life because that's how we stay safe and we feel we have control. Like you mentioned, when you're riding with your husband driving, you're not in control and you have to put your trust into the other person. And sometimes that's hard to do because we put it mostly in ourselves, I think.
I think for those of us who are strong in who we are and have pretty good self-esteem, and I'm only roping myself into this group as a way of talking about people in general, it's much easier to hear constructive criticism because we know it's not about who we are. And if it is about who we are and we like who we are, then it doesn't really matter. I think for people who are maybe struggling with self-esteem, criticism is really hard to hear.
Yes.
Your viewpoint on yourself is very fragile.
Right. And you're not really happy and comfortable with who you are. And you look to other people often in that situation for defining whether you're okay or not okay. And so then you will misconstrue even positive feedback. You have to know yourself really well in order to be able to both give and receive positive feedback.
Yep. Can you think of a time that you were having to field constructive feedback or criticism that was hard for you?
I think I've mentioned before, I have a quote friend who is kind of negative and caustic, and she just throws out negative criticism all the time for no particular reason. And I've just built up a shield and a wall around her. We get together now and then, but there is no trust on my part I don't even know if she knows she does it, but it used to hurt me and now I don't let it hurt me. And I've also mentioned when you and I were just starting doing our podcast 3 years ago, my gosh, your dad, my husband, commented that you were awesome. The podcast was really cool, but that I really needed to calm down. And yeah, he said, Sandy, you're just way too uptight and you're too uncomfortable and you need to relax and do it right. And it was given with love and he was absolutely right. I took his advice and have been me ever since on this wonderful thing we do together. I have always been grateful to him for sharing that, what some people could say negative comment, but it was great positive feedback.
And isn't it interesting that the fear when you go into something like this where you're having to put yourself out there for public viewing is about being seen, but the only way to do it well is to allow yourself to be seen.
You have to be real. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Hopefully, we're setting an example for our listeners to be real, be you, be who you are. The people around you will love you for it.
And if they don't, you've got the wrong people around you.
Exactly.
You're not going to find your tribe until you are exactly who you are.
Right. If you're trying to be somebody to fit into a tribe and it's not yours, you will never fit and you'll never feel part of it and you won't be able to be you. Always, always be yourself and you will find the right people.
Yep.
And if you deliver criticism, make it positive feedback. Don't just criticize to control.
Or to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, which is sad that would make people feel better.
That's just bad juju.
So the bottom line is when one person criticizes another, it can be done positively or negatively, and for a variety of reasons. When it's done with the intention to control or hurt someone, you don't have to accept it. When it's done with positive intentions, constructive feedback can be a good thing that helps you learn, grow, and build a stronger, more trusting relationship.
Thank you, Mama.
And thank you, Shani.
And thanks to our fabulous listeners. We love hearing from you. So please keep sending us your emails, whether it's things you'd like to see us do differently, because we're all about that. Or if you just want to share your stories about self-esteem and personal power and the role they've played in your life, or how you've fixed them, let us know because that just really warms our heart. And please review our podcast if you're feeling so inclined. You can do so wherever you stream or just visit yourpersonalpowerpod.com, click contact, and drop us an email loaded with constructive feedback. We would also love to hear about your ideas for our future episodes because we really want to be talking about things that matter to you. And if you want to learn about coaching and how it can change your life, contact Sandy at insidejobscoach.com. We look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, find your power and change your life.